Hello collectors and welcome to my review of the NECA Godzilla 1985, or more commonly referred to everywhere else as Godzilla 1984. The minute this figure was revealed, universal hate came across from different fandoms and communities, and it was unleashed to the point where NECA went back to the drawing board and resculpted the main issue of this figure. The head was fixed, but is this correction good enough? Will it please everyone? Most importantly, will it please you? Well, let's take a look and see whether or not it's worth adding into your collection. When it comes to looks, this guy is a bit of a mixed bag. In some aspects, it's not a bad 1984 Godzilla at all. You can clearly tell which suit it's supposed to be, and most of the suit's characteristics are there. However, it's as if NECA didn't go all the way with some of the features, even keeping the $20 price point in mind. First, the noggin of Goji. Clearly, it looks like the 1984 suit. It looks a little goofy, it has those big eyes, the fangs, and it's a much better sculpt than what was first shown. The only major gripe for me would be the teeth paint as, well, it's a little sloppy. But other than that, the eyes look great, and the tongue paint is nice and pink. Moving down to the chest, you can see the blue wash on this guy very well here, though in some parts of the body it likes to pull up, and I'll show you that later. I'd also like to point out here that the sculpt detail looks nicely done throughout the entirety of the figure, regardless of what your opinion is. I think we can all agree that the actual sculpting quality is not too bad. The hands. Now, the suit does have rather thin hands and arms, and the Heisei Godzilla is indeed known for the clenched hands close to the chest, but I think they went just a little bit too overboard in terms of how thin the hands are, because even in hand, you can even tell the material is thin too. Moving down to the waist and the thighs of Godzilla, wow, I don't remember this Godzilla having such a large bottom portion. Not to this degree, at least. He has got some Berthen hips and some Burgerland thighs, let me tell you. You'll see in the articulation section, you can make the thighs and the hip area just a little bit better, or you can make them a little bit worse. All the way down to the feet now, where you can see the wash on mine, like I said before, it's a little intense. This is the area where I like to say it really likes to pull up. Now, paying close attention to the right foot, Godzilla needs his nails trimmed. It's pretty unsightly seeing those two larger nails compared to the other foot. Some don't care about this issue, but I do, because if you look at his left foot, and to be clear, left-right, because it's on Godzilla here, this foot looks totally fine. This one just looks like it's from a completely different figure altogether. I don't know why they did that. Next up, we have the dorsal plates. These are pretty pathetic. They're small, very small, and the paint application is pretty basic, and I think they kind of look creamy, and not even in the good sense, too. Creamy as in, like, the paint is just a little bit too thick. And also, no, your eyes are not playing tricks on you, nor is my camera. The dorsal plates for the top half of the body are different than the bottom half of the body in terms of the paint used. The ones on the top half of the body are sort of blue, while the ones on the bottom half of the body are more the traditional Godzilla dorsal plate color. What a QC issue there. Also, when I first opened him up, I think I got the furry variant because I had to pick some hairs out of the paint in the dorsal plates. You might even see some paint scuffs here and there from them. And finally, the tail. Again, it's rather small. I don't think it's actually characteristic of this Godzilla. And those who really don't care for gaps will definitely be bothered by this segment right here, where there is a rather large gap. Overall, this Godzilla, it's as if one of the newer sculptors at NECA got to look at a few reference photos for about, say, 5 minutes, and then made the sculpt based on memory. Looking at it, you can clearly tell which suit it is, and all of the distinguishing features are there. But how they're represented is either too much or not enough. Not exactly a bad likeness, not at all, and for $20 absolutely cannot get perfection. So anyone who's seeking that, you really shouldn't even expect that from this release. NECA can't even get some of the Predators, which is probably their biggest license, absolutely perfect to the source material, and even the Bandai Japan vinyl is off just a little bit, but NECA could have done a better job with this guy. Godzilla's articulation is one of the weird instances where, are all of the right joints there? Yes, they're all present, and some of them work absolutely wonderful, while others, they don't even need to be there. So to begin, you have the basic articulation for a Godzilla action figure. You have the jaw, which is effectively on a hinge. It opens and closes. But here's the cool thing about 1984's jaw. You got the head in a neutral pose, you open the jaw, you get about that much movement. Now, if you point the head up on the ball joints from the neck, watch this. Wow, that guy's got a trap on him. You can drive a truck into that mouth. It's huge. Anyway, yeah, like I showed you, the head is attached to the neck on a ball joint, so you're going to be able to get plenty of movement out of there. You can spin it around, do whatever you want with it. And then the neck is attached into the body here on a ball joint too. So you're going to be able to get some typical 1984 poses out of Godzilla's neck. You know, if you watch the movie, he sort of has a bobbly head a little bit, so you're going to be able to get him to pretty much take whatever pose you want. From there, moving down, we have the shoulders, ball joint, as you would expect. Great range of movement. The shoulders really feel natural. I like that. That's pretty good. And then we get down to the elbows. This is the typical swivel hinge or ball hinge, depending on what you want to call it, or what technicality you want to use from NECA. So they'll swivel in one direction, like so, and then they move in a hinge in another. But as you can see here, the range, it's kind of iffy, because sometimes it wants to go all the way, other times it doesn't. And what doesn't help is that both of the hinges on mine, right out of the package, were practically frozen. Solid. I couldn't move them at all. Yeah, it was cold out, but after letting them sit for a little bit, I had to take a blow dryer to it, and then eventually it moved. So if the elbows on yours aren't moving, give it time, then heat the puppies up, and then just put a little bit of force. Eventually, they will move. Next up, we have the wrists, typical ball joint. So you're going to be able to get the hands to spin around as you would like. Yeah. No hinges for the fingers on this one, like the 1994 had. So if you want that, well, you're not going to be able to get that. But if you do have a spare 94 laying around, I do know that you can swap the hands with the 84, the 94. So if you really want those hinged fingers, you can get that. Moving down the body, we have an ab crunch. It's on a ball joint, and you can spin Godzilla around for those of you who really want to. This really does add to the posability and the expressiveness of Godzilla, so that's nice. Except for, you're not going to get too much movement out of it. I mean, it's not super movement like, say, 95 Birth versions from the SH Monster Arts line, but, you know, if you wanted to just get a little bit more movement forward or back, well, unfortunately, it's not going to have that. But, you know, nitpicking, I guess you could say. Moving down to the hips, we have a ball joint. So you're going to be able to spin Godzilla's hip around as much as you would like. And outward movement. Yeah. There we go. And now they're super loose. But you do have to do that to get the legs to go closer together. But, thunder thighs. Yeah. So, choice is yours on how you want to pose the thighs. Now, going from there, we have the knee, which, that's it. Swivel hinge like the elbow, but the range of movement, it's pretty bad. I mean, realistically speaking, the knee joint is pretty much useless on both legs. I mean, you can spin it around like so, but I don't know. Kind of pointless to me. They should have just moved it up to this fat roll here. I think that would have worked a little bit better, but that's life. Moving down to the feet, ankles are on ball joints, so you'll be able to get them to rock back and forth a little bit, and you can spin them around like so. For whatever reason, the right ankle on mine is much more loose than the left, and it has a greater range of movement. Now we have the tail. So we have a ball joint here, attached to the base. You go down one segment here, have another ball joint, likes to pop off for me. Then we have another segment. We get another ball joint. Then we have another segment for a ball joint. And then we have another segment where that then turns into the bending wire. So you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ball joints, and the rest bendy wire. Now this one, be careful. Make sure you check it in store, because I have seen plenty of reports of somebody, taking your 1984 home and pff, wire popping out through the tail. So just be careful. So in terms of range, yeah, when the tail doesn't like to fall off, yeah, not too perfect. It's just pretty basic. The bulk of the work for the tail is pretty much in that bendy wire portion. So if you want the 1984 to take some really dramatic poses with the tail, you're gonna really have to work with it, but it can be done. So when it's all said and done for the articulation, if you're creative, you pretty much have the right joints to work with here for this Godzilla. If you're not, well, unfortunately this guy isn't going to be too forgiving for you. If you really know how to work the joints, you're going to be able to get the 1984 Godzilla in quite a few awesome poses. But if you don't know how to work the joints, then you're just going to have to keep practicing, or you're not really going to get too much out of this guy. If you have other Godzilla figures in your collection, you should already have a good idea of how big Godzilla 1984 is. But if you don't, I'll be more than happy to give you an idea of just how big this guy is. First up, here's Godzilla alongside some Ultra Acts. Here's the 1984 design alongside some of the other Godzilla designs from the SH Monster Arts line from Tamashii Nations. Here, alongside some non-Godzilla SH Monster Arts. Here we have some of NECA's Pacific Rim offerings alongside the 1984 Godzilla. And finally, here's 1984 alongside NECA's Godzilla 2014 and Godzilla 1994. So as you can see, the 1984 design of Godzilla is just about the same size as all of your other average 6-inch scale Godzilla figures. He should be able to sneak into pretty much any display you want him to fit in. So, buy Godzilla now, skip him, or wait for a deal. Looks-wise, it does have some issues to it, and the complaining that you've been hearing about it is totally justifiable, especially when handling the figure. Seeing the effort of figures like Cherno Alpha, or Gypsy 2.0, or the Bad Blood Predator, or Dutch, or the Dog Alien, looking at other products NECA has made at the same price point, and then looking at this, it's sad to see that much more effort just simply wasn't put into this figure. Articulation is pretty solid if you know how to work the joints, but man, NECA needs to work on shipping figures with joints that aren't stuck out of the packaging. Overall, this figure does get a lot of hate, which isn't entirely deserved, but at the same time there are too many people hailing this figure as the figure of the year, all years. Absolutely, it's not at either end of the spectrum. Personally, I feel this figure is about a B effort from NECA's C team in terms of an action figure. Small quality control issues aplenty, and lots of hiccups which could have just simply been avoided with a little bit more care and effort. When all is said and done though, those looking for a solid 1984 Godzilla shouldn't be too disappointed here for $20. Absolute die-hard perfectionists won't like it, but I think it is good enough.